I'll go ahead and give like a 15-second warning, and then we'll get started if everyone wants to take their seats. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Gilbert Town Hall. We are here for a council study session this evening, January 24th, and we only have 2 items on our agenda. I'll call this meeting to order. And are we going to do a roll call for study session, Javelli?
We typically do not, Mayor.
Okay, it was on the agenda, so I was asking. Thank you. I didn't think so. So we have 2 items on our agenda. The first one is an update and discussion on Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport by Brian O'Neill. Brian, if you'd like to come down to the podium. You have to turn the mic on first. That's the first bug. There you go. If the mic is red, then it's hot, okay?
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Peterson, members of the Town Council. Thank you so much for inviting me here today to update you on all the exciting changes going on at Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport. Before I get started, I do have to say that we really appreciate and value the town of Gilbert as one of our owners, and I do want to thank you for loaning us Mayor Peterson. She's serving as the chairman of the Airport Authority this year, and we have really benefited from her leadership, so I want to say thank you. And again, I also want to say thank you for sharing Patrick and Amy and Rob with us. You know, they're full of knowledge, and I do want to tell you that they are very protective of the town of Gilbert as well. So they're able to serve both masters, so I appreciate that. What I'd like to do today
I can see Brian clicking away, but it's not going anywhere. See? Bugs, Brian. I told you.
Yeah, I know, but it's good that
First
it's me.
meeting. Yeah, I'm glad that it's you, actually.
Most likely operator error.
I doubt that.
We can work
IT
together.
assistance, yes, sir. Teamwork. Yeah, he's coming together, but if not, we can advance.
Sure, so we can do this.
Excuse me.
Can I just say while we're looking at that photo, that's a great photo. That's a great photo of the
You know, we have
airport.
one more airline that serves the airport, WestJet. We've never been able to get all 5 on the ground at the same time. So these 4 is kind of an anomaly. We were really fortunate to get the 4 on the ground at the same time.
Sorry. It should be working now. Thank you.
You
Wanna
think?
Give it a try. Perfect.
Thank you so much. All right, we're ready to go. Again, Mayor Peterson, members of Town Council, thank you so much for inviting me here. You know, it's interesting, those of us that work at Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport, we don't really think about as working at a regional airport. We think of our job as working at a 3,000-acre economic development project that just happens to have a thriving regional airport with 3 10,000-foot runways as part of its infrastructure. What I'd like to do tonight is just focus on 3 different areas: our growing commercial service, the airlines and the passengers, and then I'd also like to talk about some of the exciting construction projects we have going on at the airport, and then I'll finish up with some of the private development. We've got over 1 million square feet of private development going on at the airport, underway right now, and it's really transforming the landscape at the airport. If you had been out to the airport 2 or 3 years ago and now you're out visiting the airport, it certainly doesn't look anything like it used to. As far as commercial passenger service, this is our growing nonstop route map. You can see that we've got over 55 nonstop destinations. We've got Allegiant that is the majority of those for the domestic service, and then we've got Flair, WestJet, and Swoop, 3 Canadian airlines, and they serve 5 Canadian destinations: Vancouver, Calgary, Winnipeg, Edmonton, and Toronto. And this year, in 2022, we had a record-setting year. We had 1.9 million total passengers, and we're really knocking on the door of 2 million passengers, which is going to really be a significant increase of where we were just 3 or 4 years ago. You can see the green line here. That's our activity in 2022. We had 9 out of 12 months that were setting records for the year, and ended up, again, with just under 1.9 million total passengers. One of the challenges associated with having record-setting passenger growth is you've got more and more customers that you need to make sure you're providing the facilities, infrastructure, and amenities for. 2 years ago, the board, the Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport Authority Board, voted to spend $2 million to invest and up our game for our food, beverage, and retail concessions. Over the last 2 years, we brought in an indoor-outdoor Oso brewery. We've got a large Panera Bread, and we just opened the Macayo's Mexican food and infusion coffee and tea crafters. Very popular at the airport. We really think we've done a good job of heightening the quality of the food and the quality of the products. We've got a Saguaro Mercantile there, which is a retail shop, and it's the highest grossing retail shop in the country for per passenger expenditures. Really doing well at the airport, and you know, the airport benefits from that. We get a significant amount of revenue from our concessions, and that's what we're able to invest and put into other projects at the airport. So really important that we've got the right mix of food, beverage, and retail. There are a lot of construction projects going on. I could show you pictures of runways being ground up. I could show you pictures of parking lots that are being paved. But I think one of the ones that's most symbolic about what's really going on at the airport is this picture. And I like this picture because it's a side-by-side comparison of this is the rendering that we saw 3 or 4 years ago before we even had any funding to build the tower. And on the right, that's the completed tower. And I think it's really cool when projects come out and they look like the rendering that was pitched, 5 or 6 years ago. So we're really proud of that. The tower's an incredible story because before we were able to fund the tower, there was a provision in the FAA authorization bill that said that the federal government will not spend any more than $2 million in the construction of a contract air traffic control tower. Well, we all know that these days you can't get anything for $2 million. I think the reason why they put that in there is that some of these smaller airports across the country wouldn't build these Taj Mahal monuments that weren't representative of their airport. Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport is kind of an anomaly. We've got 3 10,000-foot runways. We've got over 250,000 operations a year. So we went to Washington and we pled our case, and we were successful. We enlisted our congressional delegation. We enlisted the House and Senate committees. We were successful in removing that $2 million cap for the construction of contract air traffic control towers. And we ended up getting about $28 million out of $30 million to fund this important project. So I think you can see it from everybody's house in Gilbert, but we're really proud of that. And as you're tooling around the 202, it really stands out as a monument in the East Valley. Another important project we have is this. We have a new 5-gate, 30,000 square foot terminal addition that is currently under construction. What we found during COVID is we had a small 10,000 square foot 4-gate facility that was rolled in here as a portable temporary facility back in 2008 that we never really got around to upgrading and improving. What we found during COVID is that if we had more than one flight out of that facility at a time, it really became a COVID super spreader and was uncomfortable and unhealthy. So what we pledged to do was we wanted to remove the 10,000 square foot facility, and we wanted to replace it with a modern new 5-gate, 30,000 square foot facility. So here's the exterior of it. Here's the interior of the meandering glass walkway that will attach the 5 gates to the rest of the terminal. This is going to be a real showpiece for the East Valley. And you can see the inside of the terminal addition is modern. We're using a whole set of different colors, and it really is providing a much better experience for our customers. One of my biggest fears as the airport director is once this is complete, because I know how my projects go at home, once this is complete, we're going to look at the remainder of the terminal and say, look, we can't have the rest of the terminal looking this way, and so we're going to start projects to improve that as well. But that's just the way it goes. I think everyone is going to be really proud of this project when it's completed. I put this picture in here is because we had to take down the 10,000 square foot facility in order to build the 30,000 square foot facility. But we've got record-setting passenger activity, and we can't just go without those gates. So the authority purchased a 6,000 square foot tension fabric sprung structure that we erected on the ramp in where the aircraft parking spot 4 used to be. And this is where we're running gates 1, 2, and 3 out of. This sprung structure has about 340 seats in it. It is a really phenomenal facility. So what we plan on doing is once the new terminal addition is done, we're going to take this down and we're going to repurpose it on airport, possibly for a temporary proof of concept FIS facility for international services so that we may be able to do more Canadian destinations and possibly some Mexican destinations as well. So we're excited about the future use of this facility. Another important airside project, if you've ever flown out of Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport, one of the challenges is you go into the ticketing terminal, you get your tickets, you give your bag, and then you've got to walk back outside, you've got to walk up the sidewalk, and then you've got to walk into the security screening checkpoint. If the TSA doesn't have enough lanes open or it's a very busy time, the TSA checkpoint backs up out onto the sidewalk, and at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in January or at 4 o'clock in August, the external temperatures aren't conducive for a positive passenger experience. So what we're doing is we're taking some of our bipartisan infrastructure law grant money, and we're going to take down one of the walls in the ticketing terminal, take down one of the walls in the security screen checkpoint, and we're going to connect the two with a facility, an enclosed pedestrian walkway. One of the benefits of this facility, besides keeping everyone inside and improving the air travel experience, is this is going to allow us to expand our TSA queuing capacity by about 30%. So, we get to keep people inside and we get to have more room for people to line up to go through the security screening checkpoint. So this is a real important project for the airport. Now on to some of the private development that's going on. This is the Gateway Executive Air Park, and this is where Virgin Galactic is going to call home. So Virgin Galactic is building 2 large hangars, if you can see that, Hangar B and Hangar C. They're going to be constructing these 2 large hangars. One is going to house the mothership, their term, not ours, and one is going to be where they're going to manufacture 6 spaceships a year. And I would caution you, if you're going to talk to your friends and family about what's going on at the airport, I would omit this, because during the holidays, I talked to a lot of neighbors about the mothership and spaceships and stuff, and I haven't been called back to their house, and I think they're trying to distance themselves from me. So it's kind of a new terminology that we're still getting used to. Another important project, and that's the front of the Virgin Galactic building. Another important project is Skybridge, Arizona. Skybridge, Arizona is a 360-acre mixed-use aeronautical and non-aeronautical master development opportunity that's in its beginning of its 5th year. The owners of Skybridge, Arizona have already constructed a 53,000 square foot industrial building, a 83,000 square foot hangar complex. They've got a 129 room hotel under construction, and they're also building 2 250,000 square foot flex industrial buildings. So there's a lot of activity going on in Skybridge, and above and beyond all that, in Q2 of this year, they're going to begin $40 million of horizontal infrastructure improvements. They're going to be building Taxi Lane Sierra. They're going to be putting in all the wet and dry utilities and the main boulevards to access the parcel. So really a lot of activity going on at Skybridge. This is a rendering of the hotel. The hotel, as I mentioned, is 129 rooms. It's a dual brand, so half of them will be an extended stay product and half will be for the transient 1 or 2 night traveler, like many hotels are. So we're real excited to get this. This is going to be right on Sossaman Road. And we think with the Legacy Sports Complex not too far away that this is going to be a real popular addition to what's going on at the airport. I think most of you have heard that Gulfstream is constructing phase one of a large campus that they plan to build at Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport. Phase one is a 225,000 square foot West Coast Service Center, which is under construction now. You can see it here as the walls go up, really exciting. And the first project that's going on over on the east side of the airport. What I think is real exciting about Gulfstream is that in November of 2021, they signed a lease on the airport for a 50,000 square foot facility because they wanted that as a beachhead so that they could start bringing in aircraft and start recruiting local talent to work for Gulfstream. They're now up to 100,000 square feet of facilities on airport, and they've got over 100 employees hired. And when this facility is finished construction, they plan to have 350 for phase one, 350 employees. And those are high-wage skilled jobs. And they're working with Chandler Gilbert Community College, and they're working with ASU Polytechnic Campus to try and really to generate a lot of local talent so that they can have employees in the local pipeline, which is going to be important to fuel this, not only this, but a lot of the other expansion that's going on at the airport. We've got another master development project called Gateway East. And Gateway East is a 300-acre, all non-aeronautical. We just happen to own a lot of land at the airport, and this is an opportunity to develop the land that is bordered by Ellsworth Road, the expanding State Route 24, and then the Loop 202 highway. And what this is planning on being, and we've got a master developer named the Boyer Company out of Salt Lake City. What this is planning to be is a 300-acre mixed-use development with high-end office products, some flex industrial, and then commercial retail along Ellsworth Road. Right now, they are working with the authority and the city of Mesa on phase one, which is kind of designing and master planning the first 100 acres of the 300-acre site. And the city of Mesa has contributed a significant amount of money and investing a lot of money in infrastructure. They're putting in the bridge and the first 1,000 linear feet of Gateway Boulevard to open up the site, not only for Gulfstream, but for the Gateway East project as well. And they're putting in all of the sewer, water, and other utilities that are necessary to unlock the entire 300 parcel acre. So we're really happy to team with the city and look forward to working with Gateway East as they culminate the phase one design process and start to develop. This is a little bit of the design concept that they've come up with that they're going to be going forward with the city of Mesa. We think this is going to be a real nice kind of lifestyle environment opportunity where they're going to have sit-down restaurants and hotels and other opportunities, along with the industrial that they need, and along with, in the future, the possibility of having a first-class office complex as well. People ask, what's the goal of the airport? Is the goal of the airport just to get as big as you can? And the answer to that is certainly not. We want to make sure that we're providing the infrastructure and the services that this growing Phoenix East Valley is looking for. We don't want to just grow for the sake of growing. We want to make sure that we're growing with a purpose. And in 2021, the Arizona Department of Transportation conducted an economic impact study, and that study revealed that back in 21, the airport contributed about $1.8 billion to the local economy. And if you look at some of these numbers, the money for visitor spending, that's money that they're spending on ground transportation, lodging, food and beverage, entertainment, attractions. They're spending a lot of money in the East Valley, and we see more and more visitors coming through Gateway in the future, and we want to make sure that we've got the facilities and infrastructure available so that we can handle the growing popularity of the airport. But this is some important numbers, and when we talk with our member communities and we talk with the board of directors, we're really talking about how are we going to create high-wage jobs so that we can have economic sustainability and diversity so that we're able to withstand any of the highs and lows that the economy may have over the next several decades. And we think that we're doing a pretty good mix of different types of businesses and diversifying enough so that we're going to be insulated from the challenges that another airport may have that doesn't have all the land that they can develop and doesn't have the other activities going on that Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport does. So that's the end of my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions for Brian? Vice Mayor, did you?
Hi, Brian. If I missed it, I apologize. Did you mention who the partnering communities are with the airport?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. So the airport is a joint powers authority. We are owned by the town of Gilbert, the city of Phoenix, the city of Mesa, the city of Apache Junction, the town of Queen Creek, and the Gila River Indian community. And the highest ranking elected official sits in the dais as our board of directors. And then we also work closely with the city and town managers and city staff to ensure that we're truly taking a regional look at developing the airport.
Great, thank you. I had the opportunity way back when to serve on the reuse committee when, they were closing down Williams Air Force Base. And I remember us looking at the airport and then the other property there that ended up being our education partners. But at the time, it was really risky for all of our communities to come together and say that we see this as an economic engine. And I just mention that because to see these numbers, to come back around, especially that I'm still alive and still here, because that doesn't always happen, that we've really made a significant impact in what I would consider a short period of time. So congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. I have to mention that this is a project that has been a shared vision and well-planned for many, many years. Oftentimes, I consider myself lucky because it's just happening to be at the right place at the right time. But there are a lot of people that have worked hard over the past 2 or 3 decades making sure that this project would be a success. So it's great to see it come to fruition, and we love having the old employees out and the former elected officials out to come out and talk about when they were first visiting the airport and there was nothing out there, and they seem to take pride in what's going on there now, and we couldn't have done it without them.
I think, can you back the slide package up? Can you go back to the picture of the groundbreaking for, why am I blanking? That one, right there. So the day that, for Gulfstream, thank you, I was totally blanking. The day that we drove out there to do the groundbreaking on that property, and I've been on the Airport Authority Board for over 2 years, but the day we drove out there, and we kept driving and driving and driving and driving, and if this picture really spoke to me here, and I know you've showed it to me before, but here on my close-up screen, I can see how far away the tower is in the background, and you get a true sense of how much land there is out on that airport. And it really hit me that day. Of course, it was hotter than blazes, and we went out to break ground in the middle of the dirt. I don't know why they pick days like that, but it always seems to happen. But the size of the land around this airport that you're actually talking about, that you're managing on a daily basis, is just astounding. Really is astounding, Brian.
Yeah, thanks.
And thank you for showing us actual buildings now, because we talk about dirt a lot.
That's right. Over the last couple of years, you've seen a lot of dirt. Now we're real excited to see them going vertical, and we're seeing walls built and everything. So I share your excitement.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Thank you. Any other questions or anything for Brian? This is your opportunity. I think that we would be able to arrange tours for our newest council members.
Absolutely. I know that we've been talking to some of the newest members about coming out and taking a tour. But I'd encourage the ones that have been on a while to come out too, because again, there's a lot of changes going on, and we're really proud and would be willing to show it off to anyone who was willing to come out and see it.
I think every time I've done a tour, I've learned something new. And again, I sit on the board and I hear your updates every month, but I still learn new things when I am able to do the tours.
I brought Ryan Smith with me. He's the authority's Director of Communications and Government Relations, and no one tours that airport more than Ryan Smith. So if you are interested in touring and want to bring your families, or want to bring others within the community out, we certainly would love to host you, and Ryan gives an excellent tour.
Thank you, we appreciate that, and we're proud to be a partner in the airport.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Brian. Thanks, Ryan. Brian and Ryan. Thanks for being here. Thanks for helping us work out the bugs too, Brian. We have one more item on our agenda this evening. That is the discussion on the Water Tower Plaza design and the Heritage District redevelopment. Who will be presenting this evening? Oh, I see Dan Henderson moving slowly towards the podium. I can't help it. I had to.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate the support there. Delighted to be with you and council tonight to give you an overview of Water Tower Plaza as well as a brief overview of the Heritage District. And so with that, as I mentioned, I'm here today to offer context and history about the Heritage District. As you know, the Gilbert was incorporated in 1920, and we celebrated our centennial year in 2020. The Heritage District is the original town site, which in turn brought about the town's first purchase of a water tower. The original town site intersected with the railroad in Main Street, and the railroad is still in use today and was instrumental in the growth of the area. In looking ahead, this photo is from 2010. There's a perception that this is what the Heritage District looks like today, but rest assured, it is not. Gilbert's Heritage District has seen a renaissance of not only interest, but also investment in the last 10 years alone. Today, this is what the district looks like, and it's a thriving downtown that is continuously evolving. Heritage District, as you know, is about 0.3 square miles and is centered around Gilbert Road, just south of Guadalupe and just south of Elliott Road. 30 years ago, the town made the decision to begin purchasing land to redevelop, and today Gilbert owns 33% of all land in the Heritage District, and more specifically, 55 acres in total. The vision over the decades has allowed the town to complete substantial infrastructure improvements and shape the development of the district through strategic land acquisitions, certainly land sales, as well as development agreements. The community designated the Heritage District as a redevelopment area in 1989, and then again designated the Heritage District as an entertainment district in 2013. Presently, there's approximately 1 million square feet of existing development in the district, excluding the single-family residences and the single-family homes. As of this year, there's approximately 840,000 square feet of approved development within the district, which is primarily attributed to the Heritage Park project, or what's also known as the North Anchor. This means that the total commercial building footprint of the Heritage District will effectively double within the completion of the approved projects. In addition to the private development projects, there are over 30 CIPs that are either active or planned within the Heritage District at this point in time. Again, the Heritage District is about 0.3 square miles, and after removing land planned for future projects, there will be about 16 acres of vacant land remaining. That equates to only about 10% of the district remaining for both private development as well as future infrastructure projects. Our efforts in the Heritage District are guided by a redevelopment plan, and we feel that that redevelopment plan is always a great place to start our conversations. As a reminder, Gilbert undertook a 5-year public engagement process within the community to bring about comments, feedback, perspective, directive, et cetera, from the community, and that input ultimately manifested itself into the creation of this redevelopment plan, which not only serves as the vision for the Heritage District, but more importantly, the vision of the community. In addition to the vision, it contains goals and tactics that are outlined in the redevelopment plan, and this body of work was adopted by council in 2018. This visioning document also included, for the first time ever, a master plan of the town-owned property, which identifies key redevelopment areas and essential public amenities, which then become future projects within the Heritage District. There are over 6 redevelopment plan goals that serve as sort of an overarching function of not only our efforts, but also the vision and the community goals and tactics. And it provides sort of that path forward to redevelop the area in accordance with the community's vision. Every project within the district is related to achieving the goal within the plan to reach the community's ultimate redevelopment goals for the downtown. During that 5 years of public outreach, the plan provided tremendous opportunity for us, the community, and public stakeholders to understand sort of the direction and the feedback of the community. And there were a number of items that we wanted to share with you that came about from that public feedback. Most importantly was this continued response from the public for public open spaces, as well as gathering spaces for both passive and active events. In the redevelopment plan, there are 3 key areas that are sort of created in what we call the North Anchor, the District Core, and the South Anchor. As you can appreciate, there are several different projects underway in each core area of the district, not only adjacent to the water tower, but also in the north area and the south area. So this water tower plaza is a key component of the ultimate vision of the core of the district and establishes the framework for future projects, as well as the redevelopment of the areas in and around this water tower plaza. The numbers on this particular slide coincide with the general order in which a number of projects are planned to be completed, and a majority of these projects are planned to be completed within the next 5 years. So Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to present sort of a brief overview of the Heritage District. Next up is Aaron Allen with J2 to discuss the Water Tower Plaza in more detail.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So kind of just the overview of the presentation tonight is just kind of giving a little introduction of the project, an overview of some of the public outreach that has occurred to date, and then just showing the current preferred alternative. So a little bit of the history of the Water Tower Plaza. 1925 was when council approved the purchase of the land. 1927 was when the water tower and the pump house were completed. That's the little adobe building that's on site. In 1985 was when it was decommissioned. And then from 2005 to 2007 was when the pump house and the water tower were rehabilitated. And then 2008 was when the plaza came on board. So why the renovation? The project since 2008 has just seen a lot of aging infrastructure. There was an assessment that was done in October of 2020, and that went ahead and it looked at the existing pump stations, the electrical systems, irrigation, hardscape, landscape, the structures, the coatings that are out on the different metal features out there. And what you found is that there's just been, this plaza has been kind of loved to death. Water itself is a very corrosive thing, so breaking down of surfaces and pumps There was also a lot of first-generation technologies that were used at the time. So some of the very first generations of LEDs were used. What they call a VFD, or a variable frequency drive pump. Those were just first coming out. So now, 10, 20 years later, the advances in technology, water use efficiency has come such a long way. So here you can kind of see just from some of the photos on there that the park was starting to definitely age and wear. And so thinking about, what are these advances in technology, what's going to make the maintenance of this long-term easier, what's going to be more energy efficient, more water use efficient, and then just that whole life cycle cost implementation. There's also, as Dan kind of mentioned, the downtown has changed a lot since this was first done, and the public's desire to have, larger events, more diversity of events, and flexibility of space has also kind of lent to that need for change. And then additionally, the Water Tower Way Living Room Plaza and the Ash Street alignment also have direct impacts on the Water Tower Plaza itself, especially the Ash Street realignment. That Ash Street realignment is actually slated to go right through the restroom building that's by the park and ride lot. That, because the splash pad is a recirculating splash pad at Water Tower Plaza, health code requires that there's a restroom facility within a certain distance of that splash pad. So with that being interrupted, we had to find space on the site to accommodate a new restroom building. And then also with the Water Tower Way and Living Room Plaza, the events that are going to be potentially held there, and how do you have this west side interaction that those two new public spaces can really talk to each other and have some synergy for those expanded event opportunities. So the project scope is to look at updating the existing aging infrastructure, look at some layout reconfigurations, looking at parking modifications, that new restroom building, and then new amenities, shade structures, street furnishings, things like that. So we kind of started the project back in January. We had a lot of public outreach and some concept refinement that's been happening from June to October. Currently, we're in that concept refinement and design stage right now. Then we would head into doing final construction documents towards the spring and fall of this year, with then construction heading into the fall of this year and into end of summer of next year. So some of the outreaches that has gone on to date is that in June of 2022, there was some conversations happening with the Park and Rec Board. There was an open house with the Heritage District merchants in July, and both of those meetings were kind of focused on saying, hey, this renovation is coming. What are important features about the park? What do you like? What could you see improvements that would make it function better, and how it may increase your business and things like that. There was a community survey that went out in August, again, kind of focused on some of that same interaction and feedback of, what needs do you see or perceive about the current plaza? And then we also had a public meeting where we showed some different concepts and solicited feedback on that. And then again, going to Park and Rec Board in September and Redevelopment Commission in October, again, showing those two different concepts and getting feedback on those kind of preliminary concepts. This was one of the boards that we used at the public open house, just kind of talking about water usage and kind of just giving the public an idea of the current park's water usage, and then how we can kind of become a little bit more efficiency with some of the redesign that might happen. So here are some of the preliminary concepts. This was concept A, and you can see it has kind of a nice, there's an event lawn, there's a large shade structure that has a splash pad underneath it, and the granite ball moves from out by Ash and Page to underneath the water tower. And then in the back corner, we have, let's see if this works here. The back corner here, a restroom and pump station where kind of the current pump station sits now. Here's some views just from if you were down in the park. So image 1 is looking towards the west. You can kind of see a large water wall on the south side. You'd be looking at that future water tower way. You see the shade structure with the splash pad in the background. View number 2 is just looking the opposite direction towards Gilbert Road. You can see lots of trees incorporated. View number 3, looking at underneath the tower and how some new planters are introduced and surrounding that new granite ball with a little seating area underneath the tower. Concept A again, so view number 5, looking back towards the tower. View number 6, looking at that splash pad that's underneath the large shade structure. View 7, if you were standing out on the corner of Ash and Page looking into the plaza, a new shade structure there. And view 8, if you're looking again to the east from underneath that shade structure. Concept B had basically an even larger event lawn, kept the splash pad underneath the tower, but then introduced a large shade structure on the east property edge. And then you kind of see that both of these concepts were looking to somehow tie the water tower way shade structure into this design as well. So here the view, number 1, looking at that event lawn, looking over to the west. View number 2, looking back to the east, you see kind of again a water wall on the south side, that shade structure that's kind of raised up. Opportunity for multi-use of picnicking, but then could also be used for movies in the park. Views 3 and 4 are if you're standing along Page looking into the park. There was a proposed arbor structure that could kind of frame the walkway. View number 5, that granite ball got relocated again from the corner of Ash and more to the interior of the park. View number 6, kind of looking back towards where the restroom would be and some new sidewalks and informal seating. View 7, back again at Page and Ash looking into the interior of the park. And view 8, looking back east towards the water tower. So some of the things that came out of the community survey results, there was over 3,000 respondents. So the top 5 requested amenities were shaded picnic area, restrooms, grassy area for events, food truck connection, and the shaded splash pad. So that's why you saw a lot of those concepts that incorporated a lot of these different amenities. From the actual open house, the public meeting, everybody got some survey cards and gave us feedback. And so we asked for comments that, what would you say about each comment that would improve your ranking? So concept A, it was to bring a historical aspect, more trees and sitting spaces, eliminate parking along Page. And then, some people thought that the shade structure was too big and overwhelmed the area. For concept B, again, more shade, so shade, shade, shade. A bigger event lawn, which is interesting because concept B actually had the biggest event lawn. And then people liked that they wanted shade over the splash pad. So kind of some conflicting results here and there. The Parks Board feedback on the different concepts was to have a flexible event space, to not have solid shade over the splash pad, to remove any ground sprays that weren't actually part of the splash pad. And they wanted to see how Water Tower Plaza and some of these other future projects were all tying together and relating to each other. When we went to the redevelopment commission, concept A was preferred. And actually, to take a step back, out of the public open house, concept A was also the highest ranking one. Redevelopment commission liked the big shade. There was some concern on the loss of parking spaces, but they understood the reasons why. And they would like to see if the picnic plaza could be raised in concept A, and they would like to activate the pump house as well. So the preferred alternative, which has kind of taken a lot of this different feedback and combined it, is that you have kind of this raised picnic grove here with some informal seating and planters all around, a little bit larger event lawn. There's a water wall that goes across the entire back. This is that restroom and pump station. There is the granite ball stays under the tower. a large shade structure over the splash pad, though, that we started to introduce some perforated paneling to introduce some dappled shade under here, and then lots of areas for gathering to have tables, chairs, and things like that. So. Maybe. Seems like I'm stuck now. Oh, there we go. So here's just a plan view of that same. So here's that picnic plaza, the event lawn, the water wall, that restroom and pump house. You know, the existing adobe building with some planters and some seating around. Parallel parking along Page with some, you know, new street tree plantings. Kind of this Ash Street, this is where Water Tower Way will eventually go, and they'll have potentially some shade structure here that could introduce and offer additional shade to this outdoor gathering area as well. So some views on the interior of the park. So view 1, again, you're on that event lawn, you're looking towards the west. You can see the water wall on the south side. View 2, again at that event lawn looking towards the east, and you start to see the restroom building and that water wall on the south side. View number 3, you're standing by that adobe building and looking back towards the tower. View number 4, looking under the tower, this informal kind of seating area, rocking chairs, lounge chairs, and that granite ball. View number 5, kind of along Page, looking into the interior of the park, you start to see the seating along the event lawn, the water wall in the background. View number 6, looking underneath the splash pad, you see the different jets that are configured on there, that informal seating. You start to see that there's a perforated metal pattern on that shade structure. It's actually kind of mimicked off of a water wave pattern, letting some of that dappled light through. Views 7 and 8 showing kind of the same views. Number 9, if you're standing under the tower looking towards the south, you see the articulated seat wall with the incorporation of the planters. View 10, seeing that raised picnic grove. View 11 is just outside that new little gathering area with the bistro tables and some catenary lights overhead. And then view number 12 would be if you're standing in front of that restroom building looking out into the rest of the park. Here's some different night views. So, you know, having, always wanting that water tower, the lighting effects there to be the star of the show, but being able to have some nice soft accent lighting around on the different pathways. The water wall, being able to have some nice LED uplighting that can change. Underneath the splash pad, those would all be illuminated jets, and so you get a lot of great reflectivity off the shade structure and the light play there with the water. So this should be, fingers crossed if it plays, a fly-through of the preferred alternative. Maybe. Do you have to hit a play button? Okay. Not showing. Oh. Well, now we lost the system. It's a great video, I promise.
Councilmember Anderson just said it was a night view. So,
Is it showing? Oh, it's got the second monitor.
So if this one plays, this is actually a simulation of what the ground sprays. It'll show the different patterns and kind of the lighting effects.
and will the different patterns be like random, happen during the day?
Yep, so we have the ability, they'll all be different pumping systems, and so it's a complete random pattern and lighting and all that. So very similar to how we can program them now, but you know, if you can dream up the sequence, they can create it. The tower, under the tower now, that all are the same type of nozzle. It's just the kind of a clear stream. This one has, I think, 4 different nozzle types, so it'll be a lot more dynamic as far as the ground sprays. No? If you go into non-presentation mode, maybe, for the PowerPoint. I promise I tested this before.
Of course you did. Thank you for your patience, Aaron. And, you know, it's our first night back in here, so everything that can happen is going to happen, I'm sure.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, so you can see that there's some of the ones in the center are kind of an arching spray. The ones around the outside are a lower trajectory arching spray, and then you have some clear jets, and then also some more columnar effects. And trying to give a variety, because sometimes when kids are playing on splash pads, you know, if they're littler kids, they want to be in something that's the more fan-like, so they can kind of hang out on the perimeter, where some of the older kids might want to be more into the interior and the vertical ones. But then you can start to see how at night the lights will change. You get that reflectivity off of the roof structure, so pretty dynamic at night as well. You think, can we go back to the other fly through? Yeah. All right, so it's working. So this kind of just takes you around, gives the, you'll start to see the different views. I think it gives you a little bit better sense of the park as a whole versus just seeing the still shots. There was actually some really nice jazz music in the background, so I could sing for you if you'd like, but and I think it should kind of transition to a little bit of a night fly through here. And so that kind of concludes it right there. So we'll see if we can crash the system again. So we kind of saw this one. And so with that, it's, kind of feedback and questions, and I can kind of flip back through if you want to see images again.
Thank you, Aaron. Any questions, Council? Yes, Councilmember Kaprowski?
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, Aaron. I have a few comments and questions. I really like the preferred alternative, so thank you for presenting that to us tonight. Regarding the parallel parking along Page, I assume that area would be where food trucks might be in a temporary manner, but I also saw that the trees might be encroaching in this area. How are you going to mitigate that, and are there other amenities for the food trucks, such as electric hookups, to avoid the use of generators?
Yeah, so let's see if I can flip back to so on here, the thought was that you could potentially have either down the central corridor could potentially be an option for where food trucks could possibly be, or along, this is the current alleyway, and that could be another location where food trucks could temporarily be staged in a temporary type manner. And then, yes, looking at a lot of these different planters would be where we could tuck in event receptacles so that the food trucks in a temporary, they could hook in and not have to use the generators.
Okay. My next question is regarding, are there options, I know this is a public space, but are there options for heated amenities for like the cool winter nights?
For heated amenities, I mean, they do make outdoor heaters and things that can be, placed onto like the shade structure, if you will. There's electric ones, gas ones, things like that. But that would definitely have to be a discussion probably to think of what those would be and what's going to last in a kind of a public setting.
Is it more common to have like portable units that for like special events versus something that's built in?
Typically, yes.
Okay.
Because then you can kind of put them where like if there was a large event going on here and you say you had booths or tables and things like that, you can put them around where they're going to be needed.
Okay. With these improvements, will there be any consideration for raised crosswalks across Page?
So this one is not doing anything to Page. I believe in the Water Tower Way concept that had some raised crossings as associated with the Water Tower Way. But this would be only working kind of within the current curb to curb line, if you will.
Okay. I only have a couple more things. With the shade structure above the splash pad, in the night rendering, I didn't see any lights in that structure. What are your thoughts on that in terms of making sure that it's illuminated sufficiently in the evenings?
Yeah. So that's something that we're still kind of working through because you have the ground sprays that whenever the ground sprays are on, and currently the way that they operate the park is that those are always on when the park is on, and so you'll always have that light source there. So some of the other ideas that we're talking about is when those aren't on, so say there's an event going on and we want to recapture that hardscape, that are there covers that can just go over, kind of protect the nozzles, but the light can still be on? We're also talking about potentially hiding light up in the canopy that can wash across and still provide that light, or potentially on the columns. But definitely we are trying to figure out that aspect of making sure that it's well illuminated.
And a similar comment regarding in the nighttime rendering video above the picnic area, it seemed like there were some lights in that area, but maybe not necessarily right above the tables. So just having that consideration for where that light would really be desired.
Yeah. And I will say that that's a
space.
downfall of the rendering software, is that it just doesn't translate to where the light levels that we would design to make it show. So, but yeah, we're definitely run photometrics throughout the entire park, making sure that we don't have dark spots and that those other gathering areas have appropriate light levels so that you can actually, be able to see at night and have a conversation with somebody and not have to bring out your phone to light them up.
My last comment is related to the splash pad and people that are bringing their children there. Like at the Phoenix Zoo, they have little changing areas. In this restroom area, will it have sufficient space to also accommodate, families, changing their kids and drying off and things versus more of a typical restroom?
Yeah, so right now I believe it's 4 stalls on each side. So it is a specific men's side, a specific women's side with large ADA accessible on both, ample room in both. So yes.
Are there any benches in the restroom?
Changing stations, yeah.
Well, changing stations for babies, but
Yes.
are there benches for toddlers and young children to be standing on?
Not at this time, but
Okay.
something that definitely could be considered. Restroom footprint is still in design.
Okay. I would suggest that, just from experience. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I'll go on.
Yes, Councilmember Bongiovanni.
Was there any feedback about using artificial grass rather than natural grass?
Some people, there was some feedback on artificial grass. The artificial turf, actually during the summertime gets hotter than asphalt. And so there's that water use versus actually being able to have usable lawn during it. So some of the discussions that we've been having is, well, if we're going to do turf to make it, from a maintenance perspective, make it a high-performing turf, so something like sand-based field level, so it can handle the larger events on it and stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple comments. First, I support Councilmember Kaprowski's recommendation in the restrooms for changing. I think that's going to be a key component, and quite frankly, you don't want to put all that stuff on the floor,
Yeah.
let alone your kids,
Yep.
bare feet. So if you could look at that, that'd be great. I really like the additional shading for parents. Very seldom have I gone downtown and not seen people at the splash park. And so that shading in the summertime will be much appreciated. So I don't like the parallel parking. I think I've already mentioned that to you guys individually, but a couple of things. One, you're losing parking down there, and it's very important to the businesses down there not to lose any more than what we've already, given up in the, for the pickup areas and things like that. So having two types of parking opportunities, a parallel park and then a pull-in, whatever that's called. Sorry, thank you. Diagonal, thank you. I think it's confusing, and, you just have to be there on a Saturday, and I could imagine the type of backup we would get with people trying to get that prime parking and parallel park at the same time. Saying that, I understand the reason is you want to open up opportunities for your special events and perhaps food trucks. I would prefer to have the food trucks in the alley than on the main street, and kind of getting that away from that activity. Also, I think safety, just walking out between food trucks probably isn't the best thing to do on a small road like that. Speaking to businesses down there, they've been very open about the fear of losing additional parking and anything that would appear to be permanent food trucks competing with their businesses. And so I think the more we can limit it, that makes it feel very intentional, would be better for the businesses downtown. But I appreciate you combining all those comments and bringing them forward, and I really like the concept. It's everything we ever thought it would be. Back, I know you were with us when we first designed it, and it is time for a refresh, and not just for the looks, but because of the maintenance that needs to be taken care of. And I think you guys have done a fabulous job. So thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Councilmember Anderson?
Thank you. Yes, you have done a great job.
Thank you.
In the spirit of art and culture, we have established ourselves in Gilbert as a leader in things riparian. And it might be an interesting thing to explore small sculptures of some kind in the area of different species of birds that we know frequently. And it would tie this feature with the riparian and the efforts we're trying to make. And it also helps children as well as adults identify the kinds of birds that frequent riparian areas and come to Gilbert. But that's something I think we could think about doing also to make it even more interesting down there.
Councilmember Buckley?
I just wanted to say I really like this rendering. They've asked most of the questions and comments that some of them that I would have had, but I really like this. I can see the future of Gilbert and their families loving this. I do have one question, though, on the rendering, and maybe I just am not seeing it. Now, are we going to have the town name? Are we going to have Gilbert on the water tower?
That is a huge oversight that I left that off the tower.
Okay, yeah, that
Yes,
was...
because we are not touching that, so.
The water tower is not changing.
Yeah.
It's just
Okay.
the park below it.
Oh, I know. I can't tell you how many residents have said, tell them, don't change the water tower. And I said, I don't think it's changing. So that's great. But I think this is wonderful.
That's a good catch, because it's not up there.
Yes, I will.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Councilmember Torgerson?
More of operationally with the public restrooms, it can always present a problem. How is that going to be handled, or have we gotten that far in the process?
We have restrooms down there already that the parks maintenance take care of, and I think it would probably be very similar. The doors are locked at a certain point, correct? And I don't know that you would have that answer, Aaron. Maybe the Parks Department would.
Yeah, I mean, that's some of the discussions that we have still been having of their hours of operation and locking systems and things like that, so.
Yeah. There are already bathrooms right across the street, public bathrooms that the town takes care of, so similar, I would think.
But yeah, definitely from a standpoint of making sure that, it's still a very nice facility, but also can withstand the public abuse that's going to occur there, look from design standpoints.
I have a couple of comments. I know this park, when it was first envisioned, definitely, I'm sure, nobody thought that it would be used the way that it's being used today. And now we're trying to create a space for the way that we're actually using the park currently and creating around that. So I appreciate that. I really love the preferred alternative. Thank you for listening to all the input and bringing it all together. I'm not sure why people asked about the raised picnic area. That would concern me from a kid perspective of kids falling. That's the only thing that I can think of with the raised picnic area that just stuck in my mind. I do love the comment that Councilmember Kraposky made about electricity for the food trucks, because I know we've been down there and you're trying to listen to a band play and all the generators are running and you really can't hear anything that's going on. So I think that's a key point and very helpful for anybody that will be using the park. I love that idea that Councilmember Anderson just had about bringing some kind of art, structures, features, birds, even in the background of the water feature. I mean, I think there's lots of ways to bring the art into the space and to use it. The granite ball, it's a huge feature down there now, a very popular feature. Is it going to have water to it still?
Yes, that's the intent.
Okay, because that's such a huge point for people wanting to roll that ball in the water. I just couldn't tell. And of course, it's probably the software that you can't show something like that. And there's a lot of already mature trees down there. How are we handling that?
Some of the ones that we can protect in place that are more on the south side, we're going to try to. Some of the other ones, because of just the different infrastructure that has to go in, unfortunately, aren't going to be able to be saved. Some of the other ones they're in decline already, and so they wouldn't handle any sort of salvage operation.
They wouldn't live through being moved or something. Correct.
Yeah.
And there was a fundraising effort done many years ago, and there are pavers down there with people's names on them. Will they be moved to a different location?
Yep. So that's actually just came up a couple weeks ago of making sure that we go out there and do an inventory of benches that have plaques, pavers, all that, making sure that we catalog it and find new locations, or if we can still find maybe who donated it, find out if they want their paver back and things like that. So
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think the Max Flancer bench is down there, right outside the Adobe building. And I like the idea of either bringing the food trucks along the alley. So I think you're talking between the water tower and the back of Liberty Market, correct? Yep, right there. Or I do like the idea of bringing them straight down the middle if you're going to be having a big event in there, especially if there's electricity and the generators don't have to be running. So the shade structure, I just want to confirm, the shade structure over the splash pad, is that actually, it's just going to be shade so some sun will come through it? Because I know the kiddos and the adults like to be in the shade, but sometimes it gets a little chilly when you're playing in the water. And so you might like a little sun on you.
Yeah. So I think these images on this page show it a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So per health code requirements, we're not allowed to have water fall onto the splash pad because they're concerned about bird roosting and what might come down onto the splash pad from that. So what we have is we have a solid portion that's kind of over the splash pad itself, and then all the edge perimeters are the perforated that will allow that light to come through.
Those darn health codes, right? Just causing all these issues. That wouldn't have been something that I would have even thought of, though. Yeah.
Mayor, if I might add, we are looking into that. That was noted amongst staff as well, and we're looking at all the available options.
Yeah, what the options are, because I think that you do need a little bit of sun when the kids are playing in the water like that to be able to seep through if you can. And maybe not as permanent a structure, maybe something that we've used over other parks. I don't know. I don't know what that looks like, but I think those are all my comments. Any other comments as we close out? Great job. Robert?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. We really appreciate all of the feedback this evening. It's been important to us to make sure that we reach out to every group that's touched within Water Tower, and your feedback is greatly appreciated. And, before Aaron closed it out, there are a few comments that came up I wanted to make sure to follow up on. We will continue to explore the parking. I think, that's been something we'll continue to discuss with council, with the merchants. There's still additional public outreach that'll continue. But tonight's been really helpful to guide us down the right path of what those next steps are. So we appreciate that, and we look forward to continuing those conversations, along with some of the comments on the restrooms. And Councilmember Kaprowski, you mentioned the nighttime heat. That definitely got my mind going onto what that could look like at night as well. So we really appreciate that feedback, and this will not be our last checkpoint. We'll continue to work through some of those options. And I know Aaron had one or two slides remaining, but it was really just touching upon the point that we will be revisiting those discussions with the merchants and the Heritage District, the residents, along with Parks Board and the Redevelopment Commission. This has really been a collaboration between Parks and Rec, Economic Development, CIP, and really trying to make sure that we don't leave anyone surprised by anything that goes on with this project. So thank you so much for the feedback this evening.
Thank you, Robert, and I think Councilmember Kaprowski's probably thinking about our night with the sister cities down near down at the regional park and how cold it got down there. And I'm never cold, and it was actually chilly down there, so that was a great thought. And I think if we can bring in heaters for special events, like we did in that location too, that might be a better option, right?
Yes, and the good news is the restroom building would have a small storage area, so that may be possible to have something on site.
That's great.
Yes.
Great, thank you so much, Robert. Did Aaron have more slides, or are we done?
That was about it. Yes, and one other thing for Councilmember Anderson, the public art, I think, is a really important component to what we want to continue to explore. There's a lot more real estate when you think about the restroom building being on site and some of those other areas where we can bring even more public art into the Heritage District. So we're excited to see what that could look like with some of the possibilities. And also the Adobe building. We have received questions to make sure that will remain. But I really think it's an excellent opportunity to possibly be kind of worked into the history, of Gilbert and that public art. So thank you so much for that feedback.
And speaking of art, I'm sure that you're working on this, but you're working on relocating the art walk while this is under construction?
Mayor Peterson, absolutely.
Great.
Yes, we will be, once we know the construction schedule a little more, we'll be working with all of our partners to ensure that we do our best not to displace as many people as possible.
Thank you. And I know that if they choose to come back here and that they're going to have a much nicer place to be able to use.
Absolutely. We've really tried to design it with the thought process of a variety of events, but also a nice flow, and that everyone kind of has those major amenities that were the top requested from the community.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, that's it. Thanks, Robert. That's the last item on our agenda, so I will go ahead and adjourn the study session. We have a few-minute break before we start our next meeting.